Hi, welcome back. My name is Brian Keller. I'm a program manager on the Visual Studio team. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say Visual Studio Online a bunch of times, but I'm the team services team now. And we're talking about application lifecycle management and DevOps. So I'm joined today by my friends, Principal Program Manager Aaron Bjork, Program Manager Joshua Weber, and Principal Group Program Manager Karen Ng. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Let's just do a quick round of introductions. Tell us a little bit more about what you work on. We'll start with you, Joshua.
So I'm here basically representing the Hockey App team. That's a recent acquisition of Microsoft that's been a part of Microsoft family for a little while now. Hockey App really focuses in on the mobile component of the DevOps story there, kind of helping developers kind of solve that last step, that getting actually out into mobile, onto the devices, and basically getting information back from those devices back into developers' hands, so that they're really empowered to kind of close the cycle for that whole mobile ALM.
Fantastic. And we saw some great demos yesterday in the keynote. I want to come back to you and talk a lot more about Hockey App. I have a ton of questions for you, Joshua. Aaron, tell us a little bit more about what you work on.
Yeah, so like you pointed out, I work on Visual Studio Team Services.
Yep.
We'll correct each other throughout this, so that'll be helpful. My groups focus their energy on agile project management and work item tracking, essentially. So all the aspects of collaboration that go into managing your backlog, Kanban boards, things like that come out of my teams.
Fantastic. And Karen?
Yeah, I will probably say Visual Studio Online a couple times as well. I'm really excited to be here. My team works a lot on thinking about the problem of code sharing across organizations. And one of the things that we launched in the keynote yesterday was the idea of package management as a way to share reusable components and your binary components across your organization. Really excited also to talk about dashboards and analytics. There is just a power of visualizing and bringing to life data and being able to see those relationships, and that's something also that my team works on.
Fantastic. And I know we've got some great demos teed up that we'll get over to as well. Let's start, elephant in the room. I see a lot of questions actually teed up from our Channel 9 audience already about the name change. So Aaron, let's talk about that a little bit, because we had Visual Studio Online, now we're Visual Studio Team Services. Dexter is asking, what does that mean for Team Foundation Server, which is the on-premises product? So where are we at in this name journey? You know, I actually, before we even have you answer, I went to my closet today and I pulled out a jacket. I should have brought it in, which is Visual Studio Team System. So we had a very similar name in the past. So tell me a little bit more about how we landed on this.
Yeah, we've all been sort of dealing with the running joke that we are VSTS again.
Exactly, yeah.
I think Brian talked about it yesterday a little bit, but the main reason we did it is because we would often get ourselves into conversations with people about Visual Studio Online. And you'd be 5 minutes into that conversation before you realize that they thought you were talking about an IDE in the cloud, and you were talking to them about a set of ALM services.
Right.
So it just made sense to rebrand and change that name. So we are Visual Studio Team Services now. It's the name of the product. I think we're all excited about it. What does it mean for Team Foundation Server? It doesn't mean anything at this point. So Team Foundation Server is still Team Foundation Server. And we're moving forward with the Team Services name in the cloud. So
yeah, Team Services in the cloud, Team Foundation Server on premises. Yep. And one of the hidden gems that I think your team maintains is the features timeline.
Right.
And if people haven't seen this, I think this is a really great thing to point people out. Just go to visualstudio.com, click on news, and then there's a feature timeline that actually shows you kind of the parity differences between what's in TFS on-prem and what's in the cloud. And for the most part, they're within a few months of being on parity, right?
Yeah, we talk about both those, and it's a great thing to point people to. If you go to the news, you'll see two channels essentially, and one channel is about our cloud investments, and one channel is about the on-premise investments. And the way I kind of describe it for folks is that we're going to update those cloud investments pretty much every 3 weeks. And if you click in, you'll see a set of release notes every 3 weeks. I've written a bunch of those. Karen writes them. Other folks in the team write them. And we talk about new value that's coming to the cloud services on a regular basis. And then I would say roughly quarterly, we kind of package all that value up and we ship it to the on-premises product as an update. So yeah, you can go there and sort of read about it and sort of follow along. We're also learning to be a lot more transparent about what we are doing. So you'll also see some roadmap things on there, and we're talking about things that we've got planned in the future. And you can get contact information for us up there so you can sort of interact and tell us if we're doing things wrong or if you want to see things moved higher up on the backlog.
All right, sounds good. So speaking of name confusion and clarity, let's talk a little bit about Hockey App, because Hockey App, I think when people first hear it, they think this sounds like a fun little game that I might download on my phone, right?
Yes.
But really, what is Hockey App?
I would say the Hockey app really is a kind of a mobile ALM solution. It's really looking at that DevOps scenario. And when you actually break it down, you can really take a look at three kind of core feature sets that Hockey app really offers you. The first and actually the most popular feature set is really just beta distribution. It's actually quite difficult if you're doing mobile development where you don't really have access to the machine that's going to run your code to actually just take a local development build that came off of your MacBook or your desktop machine and actually just get that out there to devices. Even for internal teams, just getting it into the hands of their beta testers that sit at the table next to you is actually quite cumbersome. You have to get a USB cable and plug it into the machine and then try to download the thing or get everybody to build the source themselves. And some of your testers maybe don't want to build the source code from scratch. And so really the feature there is to kind of unblock that scenario by allowing a really easy mechanism for collecting. And so basically Hockey app plugs into a lot of the continuous integration build that you already have, a lot of the services that you're already using to build your code. It'll ingest those final builds that end up in your system and then push those builds down to all of the devices that you do through basically a really easy user management system, allowing you to kind of control how public or private you want that beta build to really go, whether you want it to go to just people within your company or a much wider release.
Is there any limit? Like if I have 1,000 early adopters that I want to push that out to, is that supported?
Yeah, so I would say that the only limits that actually tend to crop up are limits that are just inherent in the platform. And those are usually present on the iOS platform, where there are restrictions in the provisioning profile that limit how much ad hoc distribution you can go through, or whether or not you're doing enterprise profiling or enterprise provisioning for your distribution. And so there are some limitations. There's no limitations that are built in by Hockey app, but there are limitations that are inherent in the platforms that you're running, whether that's iOS, Android, or Windows Phone.
Looking at you, Apple and Google. So.
Yeah, that's right.
No, that's great. So you can push out to these devices. Your testers can start to use them. And I think you said that's kind of the first component of Hockey app. What else does it do for me?
The second component there is crash analytics. And I think Hockey app has invested a significant amount of time over the years to really build out their crash analytics capabilities. And so basically by integrating a simple SDK that's just really just a few steps, it should only take 5 minutes or less to integrate the SDK, you're going to get automatic crash collection for every crash that basically happens on your device across all the platforms. And all the platforms have a lot of technical details around collecting those crashes and actually getting a usable diagnostic stack trace that comes back. And once again, the largest hardship is actually in the iOS platform, where since it is native code, you're going to get machine code back as your stack trace. And so you need to fully symbolicate that. So you need to basically match up the memory addresses with the symbol files that were produced at the build in order to recreate the usable human readable stack trace. And Hockey app's going to take care of all that service for you. Basically allows for plugging into your continuous build server so that the symbol files are automatically uploaded. It's going to automatically collect those crash reports that come back from your devices. It's going to symbol locate those, and basically in almost near real time, you're going to see those reports come back. And so across all the platforms, this is really quite powerful to be able to see exactly why your app's crashing. If you actually take a look at a lot of the statistics from a lot of the stores, the number one cause of a poor rating in the App Store is usually because of crashes. And if you actually take a word cloud of the number one word that shows up in a 1-star rating, it's almost always crash.
I'm not surprised. That makes a lot of sense.
So being able to understand your crashes, really understand what's happening in the wild, not just what's happening kind of in your lab, or whether your testers are basically saying, well, we can't repro this, I don't ever see this problem.
Sure.
It gets you the real access of what's going out there, in your actual customer's hands. And
That's fantastic. And I've been there before where you're trying to match up the symbols and you realize you don't have the symbols or you don't know which build this came from. So that's great that's just sort of magically handled for me by Hockey app. So that's great. So Joshua, I'm going to ask you to actually come over and see if we can get your demo set up. We were having some last minute technical issues, so we'll see if you can get set up. Meanwhile, I'm going to turn over to Aaron. And Aaron, talk to me a little bit about what your team's been up to recently.
Yeah, so in my team, again, thinking about agile project management, work item tracking, I think if you think about the last kind of 6 months, you've seen a huge investment that we've made in our Kanban functionality. So we've been sort of heads down, making our Kanban board very, very useful. We've added a ton of functionality around it, including things like customizable columns, swim lanes, conditional formatting, and being able to kind of take that board and really turn it into that sort of information radiator where you can or information radar where you can sort of watch it on a regular basis and see what work needs to happen. So a ton of investment in Kanban. The second thing is our team has been really investing in bringing process customization or customizing of your work items to Visual Studio Team Services. I almost said it right there,
Yes,
so I caught myself.
Nice job.
But this is something where in the on-premises product, in Team Foundation Server, for forever, you've been able to customize those things and do a lot of customization, and it's been great. And as we've sort of been on our journey to the cloud and stand up Visual Studio Team Services, we haven't yet sort of turned the key and given you the key to start unlocking all that value. And we're sort of right on the edge of that right now. Brian demoed a little bit of it yesterday. I'll show you a little bit more today, but I'm going to show you how we're going to start allowing you to take those work items and bring them to life, add the fields that you want, arrange things in the order that makes sense to you, and really sort of tailor that experience to the needs of your business and your customers.
Right, and so, this is not your father's process customization.
No,
I mean, if you're
no.
used to customizing in TFS,
there's no command lines involved. There's no XML files involved. It's WYSIWYG. It's easy. It's meant for anybody to sort of go up there and customize. And we've done a bunch of work in sort of parallel to that to make the work item form feel modern. And our work item form in the past kind of felt like it was built in the past, and it had some age on it, and it's going to now feel a lot more user-friendly. We're adding a lot of rich capabilities to it, including things like discussion, rich integration with development artifacts, and things like that. So it's starting to come alive a little bit.
All right, sounds good. So I'm going to look over to Josh here. How are we doing on the demo?
I think we're good.
All right, sounds good. So let's switch over. And I actually saw a question from a Channel 9 audience member. Let's just head that off. What is the difference between Hockey App and Application Insights?
Yes, that's an interesting question, especially with all the conversations. I guess we don't escape our own slight name change.
Right.
So I'd say Application Insights is really narrowly focusing in on basically service-side scenarios. And that's really rich kind of diagnostic capabilities, understanding how your server's performance is and understanding really what's going on. Hockey App is kind of pivoting to basically focus in on the mobile side of the world, really understanding that kind of device side of the equation. Basically understanding, how your devices are actually doing, how the app is actually out there in the world, distributing it to the stuff, and basically kind of closing that ALM cycle.
All right,
so
great.
that's the kind of the split between the two, is that Application Insights is really focused on those diagnostic and performance kind of scenarios for services, and Hockey App's really focused in on the mobile side of the world.
All right, I'm excited to see a demo. Let's take a look here.
So like I mentioned, we have a sample here of basically the Hockey App portal. It shows off a basic application that shows off, and it really shows off those three features that I was talking about, allowing kind of your versions that basically get automatically collected. You can either manually upload those yourself. It supports all the different platforms across all the iOS, Android, and Windows platforms. You can just drag and drop. There's actually apps that run on Windows and MacBook to help ease that process so that it really becomes seamless for kind of version management and version distribution. In addition to that, you can see that it collects crashes automatically. You can see here that these crashes come back basically with machine code addresses if the symbol files are not available. This is actually because for this version the symbol file wasn't uploaded. But you can notice here that in this iOS app we actually have symbol location not just for the application code but for all of the system frameworks that came back. So if your code goes through an Apple system application code, then we'll go ahead and symbol locate that on basically the Apple system code as well. And then that last feature is really feedback, which allows you to kind of close that communication cycle with your customers. And so there's a mobile app experience where you can actually integrate through the SDK into your application. You can place it in your actual app, and so you can actually click through the app to actually basically communicate in both directions with your customers. So if a customer sees a problem, rather than going to the application store and filing a one-star rating and saying, oh, you don't have my favorite feature, I can't even log in, or something along those lines, they can instead file a feedback system which goes directly to kind of the development team. The development team is able to take a look at all the feedback that comes back. They're able to prioritize it, and if they want to, they can actually drill into this and basically respond directly to that customer. That customer will get a notification. They'll see right there in their app the response directly from the dev team. So that ability to really have that personal one-on-one connection with each individual customer as you're going is really quite powerful when you're looking to have a successful application.
Absolutely. I mean, we've all been there where we don't really know how to get in touch with the developer, so we just one-star their app. So
yeah.
That's really great to be able to send that feedback. So these users who are sending that feedback, either by saying, can you add this feature, or I don't like this thing, or they're sending crash dumps to you, are those just the users that have opted into that beta distribution channel, or can those be any of the users of your app?
No, No, so I would say that these features are definitely applicable to all of your users, especially crashes will come back from all your users. I would say that crashes actually have the most power when you're running it on basically your production apps that are out there in the wild. You really want to catch every crash that ever happened kind of ever, to really understand the full set of stuff and understand, especially when you start taking a look at these crashes and understanding that certain crashes happen on, for example, specific operating system versions, or you want to pivot to maybe a specific version has a unique crash. And so trying to identify these things like there's a new iOS 9.1 release and now all of a sudden my app is crashing and I didn't realize why that crashes. It's probably highly likely that if it's from the latest release, you probably miss something in perhaps the API changes that happened. Same thing with feedback, where you might want to be able to track various versions from different stuff. And feedback really has the most value when you're able to connect with your full set of audience of customers. And so the developer has kind of full control over all this. They can implement it through a really simple SDK, and they can really control like how fine-grained or how broadly they want to release those features to their customers.
That's great. So I'm looking here and I see that you as a developer or as a product owner, you've got a nice dashboard for being able to see kind of the health of your application and what users are saying. Have we thought about integrating that back with Visual Studio Team Services so that I can see this maybe on my backlog or on my Kanban board?
Yeah, so that's a great kind of comment that you asked and stuff like that. That's actually one of the things that we've been showing off and stuff like that. It's been one of the recent investments that we put a lot of effort into. Since we are kind of focused on that ALM lifecycle, we really see the full lifecycle basically from the start of like an ideation phase where you're using an agile board to kind of plan your features to really like the very first time you create a new project and you want to like create it, you should really be kind of fully integrated with your whole tools. A lot of people kind of wait, especially for crash analytics, they kind of wait until the last step. Then they add that in, and then they never really have that integrated into their whole life cycle as they iterate through these constant iterations. And so in order to accomplish that, we've done a lot of kind of integration with the Visual Studio Team Services. And so actually, if you take a look at your application in Hockey App and you actually go to manage your application, you'll see that basically you can come down here and there's a dedicated tab for Visual Studio Team Services. If you go ahead and go to the Visual Studio Team Services, you can go ahead and click Configure. It'll configure your app. You type in the same credentials that you use for Team Services. It'll pull all of your projects, and it'll go ahead and set up everything kind of automatically for you. It'll link in the project that you want. It'll set up the webhooks both directions so that updates to Visual Team Services flow back into the system, and basically kind of closes that cycle. And so it turns out to be really just kind of this like two-click process really to get configured. In addition to that, while we love Visual Studio Team Services and stuff like that, we definitely want to be a very open platform and stuff like that. And so, we really support a number of different platforms. If you're using Visual Studio Team Services, say for source control, but you have something else that you want to use for bug management, you can definitely mix and match that type of a system.
That's great. And so I think you said, obviously this supports iOS, it supports Android, it supports Windows Phone. Does it also support like Windows Store applications as well? Yeah,
I would say actually one of the big strong suits of Hockey App is really our support matrix. And so if you take a look at our GitHub account and stuff like that, all of our SDKs are all open source. And we have a significant number of open source SDKs. We support all the way back to things like WinForms and WPF applications for Win32. We support Windows 8, Windows 8.1. We support Windows 10 UWP. We support iOS. We support Android. We have support for iOS 9 that just came out. We have support for the Apple TV OS, which has just been released this month. We have an SDK that's just being pushed out for that as well. There's open source community that's been built up around Hockey App. And so there's some things like there's Cordova plugins if you're using Cordova development. There's a Xamarin plugin that's actually built by Xamarin themselves that allows basically wrapping of the Hockey App SDK. So I would say that there's not too many platforms where it comes across where Hockey App has some misses. We're definitely weak in some areas, but I think the wide range of kind of platform support is one of the really kind of key strengths.
I'm surprised you mentioned Windows Forms. That's phenomenal. Yeah. That's really good.
In fact, I just this morning I had a conversation with somebody online who was interacting with our open source project and was contributing some bug fixes to our WinForms application when they actually went to use it.
There's a lot of them out there. All right, that sounds great. Anything that we should take a look at that you didn't show us yet?
Yeah, so I'd say the other part is that I kind of showed off the Hockey App side of the integration with the Visual Studio Team Services, but you basically get the exact same kind of experience in Team Services where you'll get this basically feedback back into Hockey App. And so if you go in and you take a look at like your work items, when a feedback item comes in, you can configure it so the feedback item basically creates a task automatically for you right there in the in the experience. So if you take a look at an active task, you'll see that there's actually this feedback from Donovan's demo actually yesterday, where you can actually see the feedback item. And so it comes back with, it tells you what the user was right there in your basically like kind of task management system. You can see this user had a comment, and if you want to see the full sets, you can basically link back to Hockey App. The feedback system supports the ability to do a screenshot where you can actually annotate the screenshot to show what you're really talking about. And so this really provides like the full power to the developer, right? Like developers get feature requests, but they don't always necessarily understand precisely what it is that is driving the customer to ask for this feature. And this really like kind of links them directly to that stuff. It takes out all the steps, all of these like intermediate things where stuff gets lost in translation to really be able to just kind of talk right to the customer to understand. In addition to that, if you take a look at your bugs, you'll also be able to configure the bug list to automatically create a bug item. There is actually a trigger, so you can tailor this to how noisy you want it to be. If you care about every single bug should get a new work item because I'm going to fix every single one, then you can set that at 0. If you feel like there's something more realistic, like, I only want to see if a bug has happened 20 times in the wild, then I'm going to dispatch a dev to go work at it. All of it can be kind of managed through your already kind of work item task tracking system. Here you can see that the bug was automatically created by that. And if you take a look and we scroll down here a little bit, you'll see that not only do you get kind of the reason, the full stack trace and stuff like that, but you get the link back to Hockey App, basically kind of completing the cycle, so you can kind of take a look at the full response. And once again, this kind of works across all the platforms. It's very platform neutral in its implementation.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks, Josh. That's a really terrific demo. And where do people get started if they wanted to check that out?
You'll want to go to hockeyapp.net and get started. I guess the last thing that I should mention is that we've also announced that there's a new free tier. So everybody should be able to get started. You get 2 apps for free as part of the free tier offering. So the getting started process is pretty simple. I'd say you can sign up, get your 2 apps, drag and drop your existing package onto there, and you can be distributed in less than 5 minutes to devices.
All right, I'll have to go instrument my Windows Forms apps. All right, sounds good. So let's go back over to you, Aaron. I think you might have a demo that you can get set up for us.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, while Aaron's getting set up, Karen, tell us a little bit more about what's going on in your world with dashboards and extensions and package management.
Yeah, so Josh kind of previewed a little bit of it, but if you kind of saw in his Hockey App demo, what we've done with dashboards is you used to have a team homepage and your project homepage in both TFS and in Visual Studio Team Services. That page itself had a way for you to pin charts and see some items, but it was really static. It was hard you couldn't customize it, you couldn't remove things if you didn't use burn downs or capacity. And it's kind of tough. It was a page that you didn't use all the time. And so what we did is we transformed that page into a grid that you can customize every piece of it. So every piece of the information on your team homepage has really become pieces that you can start taking off. We introduced a new dashboard catalog that has a whole set of widgets in it that allow you to bring to life things like a sprint overview or create a bug directly from your dashboard. The dashboard itself is built as an extension that we'll talk a little bit more about how we're building things in the marketplace. But the Hockey App that you showed, Josh, is actually a widget that in the dashboard built as a third-party extension. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And so will people have the opportunity to build their own widgets?
Very soon.
Okay.
So what you saw with Hockey App, it was built as a third-party widget using our SDK. The dashboard widget extensions is built on top of our extensions framework across Visual Studio Team Services, but it will be in preview very soon.
Okay, so this is a way that I can build my own widgets to get data out of my VSO account, and then what if or VS Team Services account? I need to put $1 in the jar or something. So what if I have the need to mash up that data? Maybe I want to pull in data from VSTS and then from some other sources as well. Is that something that I'll be able to build a widget around?
So you're starting to build widgets. There's a couple things that widgets open up. So kind of types that we've seen is people want a Reddit widget. So it's really an RSS feed, or it's a way to bring in news from news sources. Then there's kind of what you said, which is widgets that start visualizing the data that I have within Team Services, and that's something you can do. As you start mashing up data, then it really is about, do you have access to those data sources in a way that lets you authenticate against them, and then I can visualize something against it. So we really do open up all those doors. It's just how much work it is to build each one of those. Yeah.
Sure. It's just software, right?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. How are we doing on the demo, Aaron?
We're good to go. Yeah.
All right. Let's take a look at what's going on in the Agile world.
All right. Great. So I'm just going to start us off by starting from the dashboard that Karen was just describing, and I'm going to jump right into my Kanban board and kind of talk you through a set of the changes that have happened here over the last few months. Let me full screen this so we can see it a little bit better. The first thing you'll kind of notice is that there's a lot of different sort of configurations going on here. We've added an expedite lane. So we've added a lane at the top here where we can drag and drop items into a lane for the team to really focus on. We've added a bunch of conditional formatting, and you'll notice that here I've set up a rule which says turn all the items that are in my current sprint green, so I can really highlight them and see them and sort of visually grab my attention. We're also doing things like coloring tags and stuff like that. Another great feature that we added real recently was the ability to break down items on your Kanban board directly into tasks. And so you'll notice here I have this nice little add task gesture, or I can jump down here to the bottom and just see a set of the tasks right here that make up the story or the PBI on my board. And I can interact with them, I can reorder them, reparent them, and when items are done, I can sort of just check them off. So it almost becomes a little bit of a mini task board right there for you directly from your Kanban board.
I really love that, because what I see a lot of people struggle with is, I really like using the Kanban board, but I occasionally have these items that are just too big and I need to break them down into some more component tasks. Don't necessarily want to do that with all of my user stories that I'm moving from left to right. So this gives me that kind of hybrid flexibility.
Exactly. And again, these are all linked work items, so they're all available through the fullness of the work item form as well. Now, what's great about this too is, there's a bunch of filtering things that you can do here, and I won't show you everything, but all of these configurations are here in this kind of one handy dialog, and you can see that there's all kinds of different styling rules that you can create, 100% customizable. It's up to you to kind of set these up the way you want them. You can adjust colors of tags. The columns are all adjustable, the number of swim lanes that you want. And if we wanted to create a new swim lane that said like Connect 2015, we wanted to get that on there, it's really easy to add. It shows up right away, and well, it should have showed up right away. I'm not sure what happened there. Let's go back in there one more second and try it again. Well, sometimes these things don't work the way you wanted them. Oh, there it is. Okay, so it's there. Maybe I hit the wrong button, or maybe we've got a bug. But I can just drag items into that and move them through and on into the done column, and it's really, really easy.
And when would I use a lane like that?
Well, the most common use is the expedite lane, and it's a common sort of Kanban principle that the Kanban board represents the flow that you expect work to go through. But if you've got something that's super high priority, maybe you've got a live site issue, you want to be able to create a lane where you can track work and sort of say bypass all the rules. And I almost don't care at that point. We're just going to get it done. So that's the most common. But I would see there's tons of different implementations here. We're actually seeing teams categorize their work in different ways and use different lanes to separate the work. So it's kind of the sky's the limit. It's really a multi-purpose board there, and it's up to you how you use it.
That's great.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I really want to show you is I want to show you customization and how easy it is to do this. So you'll notice I'm going to open up this bug work item, and you'll notice that this has a field on it called target for fix, and this is a field I added earlier. But let's just go add another one real quick. And right up here from the ... menu, I can jump over and click customize, and that's going to sort of jump me into the admin section of my form here. And you can see I've got a list of all the fields that are on this particular work item. And you'll notice down below I've got this item called target for fix, which was the one I added earlier. Now in this case, I'm just going to go add a new field, and we'll call it Connect 2015. We could make this a text field. We could make it a date, time, and integer. Let's make this one an integer in this case. We can choose where we want it to show up on the form, and we can give it some options like is it required or whatnot. In this case, I'll just go ahead and add it. And then I'm going to jump back over here to my board, and I'm just going to refresh the screen. And when we open up that bug again, you'll notice that right up here at the top, I now got the Connect 2015 item, and I can put a field in there, save and close that. And I want to point out it's not just an item that shows up on your Kanban board, for example. This is a real field. So if I wanted to jump over and go write a work item query, I could easily do that. Let's say, new query here. And we want to find any work item where Connect 2015 equals to, anybody remember what the number I put in there? Was it 23? I think it was 23. There it is. It was 23. Nice. So I can actually create, query these. I can create charts on them. These aren't special fields. These are real fields, and you can add them. and do all that. Now, one of the great things is, this is, Brian demoed it. I'm demoing it here again. This is going to be on the service live for everybody in 2 weeks. So it's not quite there. So you're going to have to be patient with me. I know people have been waiting a long time for this one. And then beyond that, we're going to have a ton of additional capabilities coming, like pick lists, like a sort of WYSIWYG form layout to be able to set things up. A lot more coming in that space.
That's great.
So, yeah.
That sounds good. So what about Team Foundation Server? So is this capability, the ability to edit the process templates this way, also going to be coming to TFS?
Yeah, so it'll be coming to TFS. It's unlikely to come in an update along the way. It's more likely to come in the next full version.
Okay.
So that's the way to think about how it relates to Team Foundation Server.
Okay. That sounds great. I forgot to mention, actually, back when you were on the Kanban board, one of the things that I've seen people do with that is actually add a rule that shows if a work item hasn't been updated in, say, 3 days, then turn it red. I just think there's so many possibilities that you guys have added through these visualizations that make it really powerful for people to be able to unlock and visualize their data in new and interesting ways, and I think that's terrific. One of the questions I get a lot, Aaron, is you've made a lot of these customizations to the Kanban board, so I can add columns,
Yep.
I can change the stylization of the cards, but what if I want those same customizations on the task board?
Yeah, so many of them are there already. So let me jump over and show you that. I'm going to go to Sprint 92, kind of give you an example here as well. Here you can see I've got the sort of very, very similar visualization, but this is more of a task board, which is sort of one level of hierarchy. And you'll notice here that I've got a lot of those options. I've got the ability to do editing and inline editing right from the card. I've also got the ability to add fields, custom fields, and do styling. The one thing that we don't have here is tag color styling, and we don't have like those swim lanes, like additional lanes. So the styling, all that's going to come, look for it. It'll be there sooner than later. I think really where we're headed over time is we want to see the Kanban board and the task board sort of become the same board and really just be a completely flexible board that you can use however you want. But yeah, it's all coming there as well.
That's great. That sounds good. Anything else you didn't show us that we should take a quick look at?
I guess the one other thing I did want to show you, which I just think is fantastic, we've talked a little bit about extensions. And extensions are this great way for us to extend the product and also for the community to extend the product. And one of my favorite extensions that's already been shipped, and it's out there in the gallery right now, is called this work item visualizer. And what that is if you install it, you get this nice little handy menu item here called Visualize. And what it does is it sort of draws a picture of your work items and the relationships between them. And so you can come in here and start interacting and essentially get an interactive view of how your work items all fit together and map together. So in terms of traceability, this is sort of unparalleled, and it's right there at your fingertips, available on any work item. You can jump in and just start traversing the relationships.
That's great. So. I actually haven't even seen that myself yet. So
yeah, and
really
there's like 20 more I would love to show, but we just don't have time to do it. So.
And actually, is that since we're here, let's talk a little bit about extensions. Is that something that is on by default for everybody, or can we show how you would turn that on?
Yeah. So what you want to do is you want to jump up and look for the little sort of shopping cart up there at the top, and if you clicked Browse the Marketplace, we drop you right into the brand new Visual Studio Marketplace, and you can see it's categorized here by Visual Studio, Team Services, Code, and also our subscriptions. And this is where you'd find all those items. And we have a category around collaboration. We have a category around planning and tracking. And I think if I jump into this category right here, whoops, that was the wrong one. Let me go back into plan and track, and maybe it's the top, Seymour. Maybe a little usability issue there we could work on improving. You can see there's that work item visualization one that I talked about. And you can see there's a bunch of these. The TFS Time Tracker was demoed on stage yesterday. Love what these guys are doing. This is an awesome extension. This Estimate tool, this is one that was actually written in-house, which is almost like a planning poker style experience. And it's fun. It's really, really fun and makes the sort of application come to life when you start to use it like that. So yeah, these are all there and they're ready for people to use.
That's great. Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks for showing us some demos. It's always exciting to take a look at what's going on in your space, Aaron. And Karen, I don't know if you want to go try to get your demo set up. I know we were having some challenges earlier. And Aaron, maybe while we're waiting for Karen to get set up, I want to talk a little bit more about the philosophy behind the new process customization model, because I know that you just showed a really straightforward demo that shows how easy it is to add a field to the form, but there's really a lot that has gone into this. Can you tell us a little bit about process inheritance and some of how that works?
Yeah, I think, it's a great question, Brian. I'm glad you asked, because what we've essentially done is we're giving you a way to manage all those customizations in a very, very, very rich way. And the way I kind of contrast it to the previous customization is in previous customization, or the customization you can do on Team Foundation Server today, you kind of have the key to every room in the castle, and it's a master key and it works everywhere. So we give you a castle that's a 3-bedroom house with a bathroom and a kitchen, and then you get your hands on it and you remodel the whole thing, and suddenly the kitchen is the bathroom and it's got 5 bedrooms. And when that happens, it's hard for us to carry the experience forward without sort of messing up the bathroom you created or the new rooms that you've added on. And so we've invested a ton in the plumbing to give you a really rich way, and you can see even through those visualizations, you can see all the fields, you can track where they're used, and you get a layer of relationships between what we call sort of the system templates or your master templates and then inherited templates. So if you want to create a set of process templates that only have a few additions, you can do that and you'll still get all of the additions that we make or the additions that your process owners are making. So it's really going to sort of change the way you think about managing your process. It's going to make it visual and a lot easier to sort of carry forward.
That's terrific, and I think you said that starts to light up here for us in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And then you just have a sprint over sprint plan for adding new types of fields,
yeah, I think
new types of customizations.
Yep. You're just going to see it get better and better over time. I know it's been a long journey to get to this point. I was responding to somebody on a blog post this morning because they were saying, "Is it coming? Is it coming in November?" And I was sort of, doing what I have to do a lot of sometimes, which is apologize and say, "Listen, I'm sorry. Just give me a couple more weeks." But in this case, we found a few rough edges at the end of our last deployment. We weren't happy with them, and I wanted to get it right and make sure that the experience feels really good instead of getting something out there that's kind of sloppy.
Right. Well, I mean, it's such a fundamental part of the product that, if we don't get this right, then we risk the chance that we might not be able to add features to the product over time. So I really like the design. I think you guys have done a great job of thinking through it, and I'm excited to see more people get a chance to play with that. Karen, how are we doing on the demo? Are you able to?
Maybe one more.
One more minute?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to another question from our Channel 9 audience, which is, can anyone talk about what's new in kind of the release management space? I saw that we've got a new online version of release management that works with Visual Studio Team Services. Is that something that you can tell us about?
Release management is brand new. It's now in full public preview, so everybody can go use it and try it out. I wish we could have asked that earlier because I was set up there to do a quick demo of it. But you can think of release management as this great customizable pipeline where you can take the bits that are coming, sort of out of your backlog, into your repositories, and then out into environments. And you can now manage that. And you can automate deployments. You can customize that so you can send things to different environments, have approvals, and it's completely customizable and configurable. So brand new feature. We're really excited about it. I think Brian talked yesterday about how people have been sort of banging him over the head for the last, just let me use it, let me use it, let me use it. And we're excited that now people can use it. And I think what I'd encourage the community to do is really, put it through its paces and give us feedback. I think we often think about features like this when we get them out the door. It's not the end of the journey, it's sort of the beginning of the journey. And now we're really in that active listening mode to find out what's missing, what needs to be improved, and how we can continue to take it forward.
But already, I mean, I think it's cross-platform. You can configure everything you need on the web. It's really easy to get started with this. One of the questions I get asked a lot about is what's the difference between our build automation system that's built into VSTS and release management. The beauty of that is that they're really just the same tasks behind the scenes. It's just that release management adds this extra level of workflow and approvals on top of what would otherwise be a continuous delivery system.
Yeah, we've worked really hard to make sure that the plumbing is basically the same. The experience really feels the same, and that allows you to have this kind of seamless experience from build to release. and it doesn't feel different, and it works all the same, and it's 100% integrated. So yeah, we're excited about that.
And I think all the tasks are open source on GitHub. We've seen a lot of contributions from people. In fact, I think the Android build tasks and the Android unit test tasks, those actually came from people outside of our team.
Yep, that's right. And you'll see additional tasks in the extension gallery as well. So you can go write those tasks and throw them in there and let people use them. So,
great. And I think that's how Hockey apps get deployed, right?
Yes, so I think the Hockey App team, in partnership with the VSTS team, or VSO at the time, went and built an extension that does the same thing. So the Hockey App extension that's in the marketplace really collects that kind of configuration, goes and talks to the Hockey App service, and really plugs in kind of seamlessly to the whole release management and build system, so that the final step of releasing out to customers is just pushing out to Hockey Apps, just like one more seamless step in your kind of a whole release management process.
Yep.
Once again, you can kind of do that release management stuff to really kind of encodify your company's process into a reliable system that you can actually visualize how we release software.
Yep, I love it.
We have a question from Channel 9 from Carlos. He's saying, how do I do build, measure, and learn with the Microsoft tools? We've talked a little bit about this already. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how your teams actually practice build, measure, learn. Is that something that's kind of core to our development philosophy?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think build, measure, learn is the idea of coming up with a hypothesis of what you expect or what you think will change. Building something that validates or invalidates that hypothesis, getting it out there so you can measure it and see what's happening, and then learning from that. And learning is where you gather telemetry, you gather metrics, and you sort of apply that learning to what should our next steps be. And I think that what I kind of describe to people a lot is I think we've been internally on a journey over the last few years to become really what I call data-driven and data-aware. So we've got a ton of telemetry in our own system. We're monitoring that all the time. When we put new features into production, it's almost the next day, the first answer is, or the first question is, how many people are using it? Are we seeing the trends that we expected? And it was really fun last night to see the flood of emails, even within our own teams, as we were making announcements and watching the telemetry start to roll in and seeing, oh, look, this is the most popular extension, and people are really downloading that. And that data really helps inform what next steps we should take. So yeah, we're using it, and I think we're working hard as well to make the tools, Visual Studio Team Services, Hockey App, and all aspects of sort of the Microsoft platform ready for it, so you can do it as well on your own apps.
That's great. I love walking around Building 18 and seeing all the monitors in the hallways that just light up this telemetry at our fingertips.
As long as they're green.
Yeah, as long as they're green.
When they're green.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, I think Karen's giving us a thumbs up over here.
I'm giving you the thumbs up, finally.
All right.
It's great with two-factor auth. It makes your enterprise really secure, but it also means for demos, you got to call in and get your things.
Especially with 3 people sharing a machine. So
I agree. Yeah.
So let's take a look.
So I'll just start here. So Josh kind of showed this a little bit. I'll show dashboards first and then a little bit with package management. But this is this is a very clean kind of dashboard. One thing you might not have noticed when Josh kind of showed it on the screen is he was mentioning that Hockey App to VSTS Team Services connection. And that's the Hockey App widget we have here, which takes you directly to Hockey App, so you can start seeing your crash dumps, your overview, your downloads. A couple other things that become really interesting is we've introduced things like the Markdown widget. So let me actually take you over to, so this is kind of like a board that we've built already that you saw in the demo yesterday. This is the default dashboard experience that you see today. So if you create a brand new project in Team Services, actually and very soon in Team Foundation Server, what we've done is this is your default dashboard. It gives you really a welcome of how to tour the product. So go directly to your work or Kanban board that Aaron was showing. Go directly to work or your Kanban board that Aaron was showing. Go directly to your Get or TFVC repository. Learn how to use your continuous integration or visualize progress with charts. It gets started directly with a query results widget, so you can plug really anything else you want in there. So a few things I'll just want to point out. The first thing that we did was we introduced the concept of doing multiple dashboards. So we understand that a lot of people want to do things like maybe an overview. I've created another board here that's called a sprint overview. So I want to start seeing things like my builds over time or my charts. I could easily create another one that might be what I might want to do with my engineering health, a health board. And it's really easy to create that new board. Once you have kind of a clean canvas, we've introduced the concept of a dashboard catalog. It lets me do a couple things, so I'll just show you a few. So a code tile, for instance, shows me the commits over the last 7 days. I'll add that one. I'll actually go ahead and add a query tile one, so bind it to a query. And maybe I'll just go down and add a sprint overview one as well. So just a couple of these widgets. So the sprint overview automatically populates and it's immediately configured because your sprint is actually already in the works. And you can see a few things that I really have, 6 work items in progress are already done. I have 11 that are in progress and 1 that's not complete. If I go in and configure my query tile, one of the things that Aaron was mentioning with the styles that we brought on with the Kanban board, we've actually brought to the dashboard and the widgets as well. So this query tile, I can go ahead and configure it. So I'm going to look at maybe my active bugs here. For some reason, if my active bugs is less than 10, that's pretty good state. So I can go ahead and conditionally colorize that query tile now and go ahead and save that. Same thing with the code tile here. I can go ahead and configure it, and it automatically pulls master because that was the branch that was the branch in the repo that I was working in. If I wanted to go ahead and add a chart, the way that I would go ahead and add a chart is I need to go into the Work Hub, and in the Queries tab here, there's the ability to just these are the same work item charts that you've seen before. We have the same concept with test charts and with build histories as well. So let's go ahead and just go and see one of these. I have an active bugs chart that I've already created here. I can go ahead and then add that to my health dashboard. And when I go back here, you can start seeing the board starting to populate. So that's just a little bit of what you can start doing with some charts, some sprint overviews. Markdown really gives you a power to bring images in. There's a lot of things that you can do there. That's
terrific, Karen. So is this something that I could put on maybe a team display and then configure to refresh on a periodic basis?
You're hinting at something that we've heard quite a bit.
Oh, so, don't mean to steal your thunder here.
You can't do that yet.
Okay.
But one of the things that we've heard a lot, and actually our team does, we use our dashboard continuously every day. And one of the boards that we use is it's actually called the TV board. And it's something that we put on the TV. And we're looking at the concept of having it auto refresh over time if it's for that TV scenario.
That's great. So I know that you said that there's an SDK that's coming. Obviously, we have a lot of developers that are online. Can you just give us a hint at what the programming model looks like? What kind of technologies are used to create these widgets? Yeah. So the widget itself is really just it's JavaScript and HTML is really how you can think about it. And the third-party widgets are built as iframes. So the way that we built the hockey app, as an example, is it's an iframe, and you can put things that you need into it. The other thing you'll start seeing soon is the concept of going into kind of an edit mode, so that these third-party widgets can just be really rich in what you can do with them. Yeah. That's fantastic. So is this, you mentioned that the Team Foundation server is part of your roadmap, and so is that something that people can look forward to soon to see these dashboards?
Yes.
Or is that further out?
So dashboards actually are already in Team Foundation server update 1.
Okay.
So as soon as update 1 is released, you'll have this on-prem as well.
Okay. And what is the story for kind of the analysis services, reporting services that I'm used to with TFS? This doesn't quite give me full feature parity with what TFS had. It gives me some new things that I couldn't do before. But for people that are looking for that reporting warehouse capability, how should they think about that evolving in the cloud over time?
Yeah, so that's a very important part of our story in the cloud. So in TFS, you had that old cube and that old warehouse that you had, and that kind of concept to be able to mine over all the data and have that data accessible to you, both inside the product to build widgets and accessible so you can do it like mashups or a data export, is something that's really important to us. So we have kind of a full team looking at that as well, how to bring that data to life.
That's
so
great.
You'll have something there for the cloud.
Sounds good. You mentioned earlier package management. Is that something that you can show us, or can you talk to us about?
Yeah, so let me jump over to this account actually. So Aaron kind of showed you that marketplace extension, and we've been really excited about extensions because it really just unlocks the capabilities that you can do in the product. So package management, if you kind of go to this manage extensions here, it is something that we just launched yesterday. This one's actually already installed, but I'll go ahead and show you this marketplace. What we brought to life was an extension that actually brings package management for your NuGet packages into VSO. Sorry, that's $1 in the jar for me. into team services. Our goal here is really to help organizations share your binary components and to reuse code and software. One thing we found in the company is, open source software and building on top of things that people have already built, it's powerful. It lets you get to an application faster over time, and that's really the concept that we want to bring about. So what package management does is think about how you might have shared packages or reusable components today. Maybe it was on a file share. Maybe it was some way to know that this was the release version. Wait, this is the test version that you should use tonight. This is the safe version that you should use. It gets complicated to manage all those different kind of, what's the state that your package is in. What we've done with package management is we've made that a lot easier for you. One, we've made it really easy to just be able to create a new container that says, here's where I want to hold all the packages I want to share, and we host and store that for you directly on Team Services. The other thing we do is we offer permissions. So let me actually just show you what that looks like here. Let me go over to this package tab. So when you install the package extension, you will immediately start seeing a package kind of star tab. What this allows you to do is we want you to be able to easily create a way to share your components. I'll kind of give you a sneak peek into how we do it. We actually build Visual Studio Team Services and Team Foundation Server using our NuGet package management service. What we do is we have a single feed for our OSS components, we have a feed for our externals components, and we have a release feed. So every time a package is ready to be shared with other teams outside of Team Services, we use that feed to share that. So if I went ahead and showed you here, it's really easy now to create a new feed, and feeds are really just containers for these packages. You can control your permissions on who's allowed to read it and also who can contribute. An important piece here is it integrates really seamlessly with any build service you have, including our own. You can integrate with Jenkins, you can integrate with Team Services, but as your build system is producing packages, it now just automatically populates this feed. I'll show you this dev feed here. You can then upload packages and kind of browse through them. And you can kind of see some of the information you start seeing here is a really easy way to bootstrap it. You can use it through the tools, you can find the authors, you can see the dependencies here that are used, and you can connect to the feed. So that concept of connecting the feed is really what you're familiar with NuGet and package sources. So directly from Visual Studio or whatever IDE client you're using, you can use this URL and connect to the feed. And you can think of it like an internal NuGet feed for your organization that you control permissions on, that we host in the cloud for you, and that you can secure to whoever you want to see it.
Okay, that's fantastic. And this is just NuGet. This isn't a Microsoft special version of NuGet. You've just taken the existing NuGet. So any of my existing tools that work with NuGet are going to work with this, right?
That's actually a great question. So yes, it's not a new package type. We help you with all the storage and the permissions on it, but it's NuGet. So that new spec is how we're getting all that information, and we support NuGet v3 and v2, and it works down level on tools, and so grab the extension.
And what about other package management solutions? MyGet, I think Bower is another one out there that's pretty popular.
Yeah, so other package protocols. So Maven's very popular, Ivy, CocoaPods, NPM, Bower you mentioned. Those are all package types on our roadmap as well. So you'll start seeing additional package types coming.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, thanks for showing us the demo. Anything we missed that you wanted to show?
I think that's about it.
All right, awesome. Sounds good, Karen. Okay, so we just have a couple minutes here. Let's see if there's any other questions from the Channel 9 community, if I get our monitor back here. Does anyone, I don't know if anyone actually knows this. Jason's asking, when is the new release management system coming to TFS?
Yeah, I'm not sure I know the answer.
It's probably on our feature timeline, though, if you were to go take a look.
It probably is, yeah. Go to visualstudio.com, click on news, and I think we'll talk about it there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people miss that there's a kind of a 3-column layout. The one on the left shows when it ships to VSTS, and then the one on the right is when it ships to Team Foundation Server. So take a look at that. Another related question, Guillermo is asking, are there plans to bring extensions to Team Foundation Server on premises? Karen?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's pretty just a timing thing for that one.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it's just software. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, an important point on that, too, is that those extensions are the same. So we have sort of a write once mentality there. So if you write an extension for Visual Studio Team Services, it'll run on TFS as well when the extension platform makes it to TFS.
Great.
So, yeah.
Great.
Actually, to add on that, like I showed you package management that we have installed as an extension, but the whole dashboard's functionality is actually built into the extension that's turned on by default.
Great. Sounds good.
It works for both products.
Another question from Guillermo. What's the future of VSTS or TFS with respect to VSTS? Are we just moving everybody to the cloud? Is TFS going to die? I mean, what's going on there?
No, TFS is not going to die.
Great.
And no, we're not forcing everybody to the cloud either. I think we really believe in sort of both environments, and we believe that most organizations are going to invest in both environments in a lot of ways. So TFS remains there, and we'll kind of keep up to date and continue to see value show up release after release after release. VSTS will be there for those that want to use a subscription-based service, and it'll be updated every 3 weeks. So yeah, you can look forward to a healthy future for both.
All right, sounds good. Another question here from Bill Walter. If I start a VSTS account as one name, like mycompany.visualstudio.com, and then we change our company's name, do you support that rename? Is that a straightforward operation?
We do support that rename, yeah. So you can go ahead and do that. We actually support it directly through the UI right now, so you can go rename your accounts and do that kind of stuff.
And you can now rename your team projects, which we've had to apologize for, gosh, how many years?
Too many.
Yeah. Over to you, Josh. So another question, is there a cost for Hockey App?
Yeah, so there's a number of pricing tiers. Like I mentioned, that we have that free tier, which has been pretty exciting. I think we got some Twitter comments about that just in the last couple days. So that's a new feature from kind of Hockey App, that there's the free tier for 2 apps. But there's a number of different pricing tiers. Basically, most of our pricing is around how many apps you're going to have. And so if you go to hockeyapp.net/pricing,
sounds good.
You'll get the whole pricing tier. There's a couple of them.
Okay, well, we are out of time. Thanks for joining us again. Thanks for being here, Karen and Aaron and Joshua. And we'll get on to the next segment here. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Brian.